Good evening, everyone. This is a call to order for the Policy Committee meeting for Wednesday, March the 5th at 5:30. Mrs. Shope, could we get a roll call, please?
Absolutely. Tom Hankins,
Here.
Amy Levy,
Here.
and Brian Nichols.
Here.
All members are present.
Thank you. Could I get an approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, one.
Yes. Okay.
One of my team members is not yet here. Is it possible that we move item 2A to the, I don't want to say to the bottom of the meeting, but can we move 2A until he is present for the conversation? He is supposed to be here.
Okay. Well, go ahead.
Is it okay?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Suggestion.
Quick question. Just want to make sure, has the policy been passed out to every booster club leadership?
So I'll be prepared to answer that question when Mr. Gratz is available.
Okay, and the reason I ask that is because instead of moving it, if everyone hasn't had a chance to look at the policy, I would say pull it. And I would also be very disappointed because this is the same conversation we had last month.
I understand that. I just want to make sure that that question is answered with Mr. Gratz in the room.
Well, my 2 cents would be that I wouldn't want to continue to move it waiting on Dan. You know, if we move it to the bottom or we pull it, this is my suggestion. I agree with Board Member Levy that, here we are, second time. So, Board Member Hankins, do you have any input on this, or?
Not really, just asking the question, moving it on an agenda item from one place to another, does that violate anything about open meetings? Just a question.
No, it does not. So.
Just a recommendation, could we just pause it until he arrives and then we finish up whatever discussion we're having and shift it in? Because I know that there are some people that are here, and so we don't want to keep them here indefinitely.
No, I'm fully okay with that, please.
Okay. Great suggestion, Board Member Levy. We'll pause that item 2A till Mr. Gatz arrives, and then we'll move on to the approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carried. Okay. Let me get this sorted out since we're going to come back to that.
You might want to start with C, so this
Yeah,
B is related.
right. Yep, I did. That's what I'm doing. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to 2C, Policy 345.4, Promotion and Retention. I think we're going to hear from Mrs. Beavers and Mr. Bosco.
And Ms. Moratek.
And Mrs. Moratek.
Good evening.
No, 2C. 2B's tied to 2A.
Who's on first? Good evening. So we're here to present the policy, I got to find my place here, 345.4, promotion and retention. And the reason why we're here is because of part of Act 20 that you guys have heard a lot about. It's the school board's responsibility to adopt a 3rd to 4th grade promotion policy that includes at a minimum what's outlined in the statute. We previously took this policy to the Teaching and Learning and Pupil Services Committee 2 weeks ago to solicit feedback. So we have already been there, and now we're here, and we don't have a presentation. We just would like to walk through the revisions.
Board Member Levy.
Thank you. Just a quick question on how you want us to have the discussion. Do you want to go page by page, or can I just go through all of my questions?
I would suggest that you go through all of your questions.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, so my first question is the first 3 lines. I think that beautifully lays out the mission, and so I'm just wondering, what is the rationale for proposing the deletion of that? Right above purpose and philosophy.
I don't think we thought that was necessary for policy language.
Okay. And then under number 1, purpose and philosophy, where Wisconsin Act 20 requirements are listed, do you think it's more prudent to say compliance with Wisconsin state laws? And my rationale for that is if Act 20 goes away, someone has to be mindful that this policy is going to need to be updated.
What do you guys? Yeah, I don't have any hesitation with that.
So unless a committee member has an objection, if we could just remove Wisconsin Act 20 requirements to Wisconsin state law requirements, and I believe the same thing appears on the next page. It's the 3rd line down, Ms. Shope, under the header 3rd and 4th grade promotion requirements. So my next question was going to be, looking at section 2 promotion, it still is. How is the perspective of a parent or guardian factored into the promotion decision? Like, what role do they play in that process? Not the ultimate decision,
Yep.
but in that process.
Yep, okay, so thank you for triggering my memory that I didn't
Here to help.
really explain. So the policy that we created is based off the model policy put out by DPI. So that's to just kind of have that background. They set out a model policy, and we kind of took that as a cross-departmental team and put that into School District of Beloit vision. What we did then was there is part of the statute says you must have procedures written as well. And so you'll see under this agenda item, there should have been promotion guidance as well. Got it, okay. So in that, you'll see that there is the process when you go through the promotion and retention decision with each individual student, and as a parent is a member of that team when you're reviewing the progress or lack thereof that a student made. Do you want to speak a little bit more to that? Or are there specific questions?
Well, okay, for the Act 20 4th grade promotion guidance, it says promotion and retention determination process. So I guess my first question, is this the EMLSS team? That, like they say, it could include, is that what constitutes
Yep.
the team?
That's actually where we're going to insert this guidance, is into our EMLSS document, so you are spot on.
Okay, and then I am assuming, but I want to confirm that EMLSS is equitable multi-level systems of support.
Yes, ma'am.
We may want to spell that out somewhere in the document. I would just say the first time it's used, because everyone wouldn't be familiar with that language. And then my question is,
In the policy.
I know that it says that a parent or guardian is a part of that team, but what function do they have on, because I don't know how many, are there like 6 meetings for a student? Are they expected to be at all of those meetings? I'm assuming they're taking place during the day. That might not be feasible for some parents. Does someone call them and say, hey, we had these meetings, this is a summary, and ask for their input? I'm just trying to understand, what level of engagement parents and guardians logistically have?
Sure, that's a great question. When we look at the EMLSS process at the building level, students that are flagged would then have a personalized reading plan. The kind of context of that is within 10-week cycles, essentially. So the parents would be part of that process at the very beginning, and then they'd get progress monitor data from the team for that student throughout the entire 10 weeks. If that student was then going to continue in a PRP because they continue to be flagged, or if that student was going to continue through the EMLS system where they're going from tier 2 to tier 3 intervention, the parents are informed of that process every step of the way.
And invited into those.
Yes.
That's part of the
Yes.
statute too.
Right.
For Act 20.
Yep. We have to.
So they're not really giving input, and I'm not saying that's right or wrong. They are being informed kind of every step of the way. Is that their involvement, or is it?
Well, I think at the ELMSS team level process, we want as a team to have input from the family about things that are going on in the home or things that they're seeing. Decision making is done collaboratively as a team. So while the interventions might be prescriptive from a school district perspective based on what's in the ELMS guidance says kind of what's next based on the progress monitoring data that we're seeing, the parents will have input, but decision making is going to go through kind of that ELMSS kind of formulaic approach, I guess, if I'm saying that okay.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And then on the second page, under the header that says 3rd to 4th grade promotion requirements, the very last line of that, the EMLSS guidebook, where does that document live? And can we have that cross-referenced at the bottom of the policy, Ms. Schopp?
So the ELMSS guide is a guide that we house in the district curriculum warehouse for all staff to be able to access. I don't know if it's publicly accessible.
Under staff.
It's available for all staff through the staff tab.
Okay, so it wouldn't be available for everyone, so we wouldn't cross-reference it on the policy, but is access to that given to parents and guardians as a reference?
Yeah, I don't know if it is typically, but we can look into that.
Okay,
Can I add one more thing about that?
Absolutely.
Michelle, I think we should, where it says E EMLSS right there in the policy, I think we should spell it out like you just said, because we don't have it anywhere else.
yeah.
So I can give that to you.
Yeah.
First
before the
paragraph,
acronym.
equitable multi-level systems of support, and then in parentheses, E EMLSS.
Perfect. And then under the next header, 4th and 8th grade promotion requirements, number 3, the very last thing, 'cause it's just the 3 criteria, and follows district guidelines. If I was a parent or guardian or just someone looking through this policy, like, what is that, the district guidelines, and is that something we want to cross-reference or give people access to?
I gotta get my head.
No problem. It's the very last
right.
portion of number 3.
Yeah, what are those district guidelines?
Are they, is that really the EMLSS?
I would
Or are
say
there
probably,
separate district
right.
guidelines?
Students, classroom, teachers, and follows district EMLSS guidelines.
Perfect.
Yeah,
That's a good
good.
catch.
It is a great catch.
And then number 4, the appeal process. So a couple things. One, because this covers promotion between 3rd and 4th grade, and I believe 7th and 8th. Do I have that right?
8th to 9th. I think.
8th to 9th? Okay. Is there, and thank you for providing the Acts 24th grade promotion guidance, is there one for 9th grade promotion? Is that different? Do they use the same information?
No, because Act 20 is only up through 3rd grade. So where you see 4th and 8th grade promotion requirements, we're looking at academic performance, state assessment results, and then teacher building recommendation.
So the 8th grade promotion has nothing to do with Act 20?
Correct.
Correct. It's a
It'll-
separate act.
Okay. Perfect. So here's my question. Under appeal process, one, we need to remove that "the" in number 4. So parents/guardians may appeal only on the basis of, and then it continues. But actually, that's not accurate, because when we look at the 4th grade promotion guidance, if we go to the second page under number 4, it says the school/district representatives recommend retention, but the parent/guardian does not consent. In this case, the student will be promoted to 4th grade regardless of other factors. So there is no appeal process, because all the parent has to do is say, no, thank you.
getting ourselves.
Okay, I think we're just behind one half
No
a step
problem.
here.
Okay, so the first place we need to look is on policy 345.4.
Yep, we got that.
Yeah.
We're good with that. We're now.
Number four, so it lays out an appeal process.
Yep.
Right.
So when I was going through it, my initial question was, because it just says you can submit an appeal. Well, my question was, what happens after that? Like, who do I hear back from? What is the time frame? What if I don't, can I appeal that?
Appeals.
Whatever. And then I kept reading, because when stuff doesn't make sense, keep reading. So the fourth grade promotion guidance says that if the school/district recommends retention, the parent or guardian, if they don't consent to that, then the child is promoted regardless of other factors. So there is no need for an appeal process because the parent has the ultimate decision to say, no, thank you.
Yep, you're
That's
correct.
straight
So
from statute.
that's straight from DBI.
Right, so we need to remove section 4.
Yes, ma'am, I agree.
Right. And then I guess my other question was the Act 20 fourth grade promotion guidance. I love that it was given to us as a reference because I learned a lot, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Is this going to be added to the policy? Is it going to be cross-referenced? Is it, because I feel like it should.
Well, it's not going to be added to the policy, and the reason for that is because.
There's a lot of similarities.
Act 20 is changing every single day. And so we anticipate this guidance will probably be different in the fall.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
And it might be not that the statute has changed, but the interpretation and application
thank
of
you.
the
Yes.
That's
statute.
what they're
yeah,
debating.
I'm sorry.
Right.
yeah.
Just one more final. So will that impact the process? Because what I really appreciate about this is it lays out the process.
Right.
And if we don't envision the process changing, but maybe interpretation and kind of nuance, it would be helpful for families to look at this and understand the process.
I definitely think the process should be on the website for reference to the family. Do you
I
guys
like
agree?
that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
because it's,
And in the EMLSS guide.
Yeah.
As, yeah.
Then we're linking all of the things
Right.
together.
and it's being transparent.
Yeah.
Okay, you said something that concerns me. It's changing every day.
Sure.
The interpretation of
That-
the
well,
act.
I mean, I understand, but that concerns me. Are we getting a little bit out over our skis? I don't mean,
We have a timeline put.
okay,
well,
what is it? I'm sorry, I missed, yeah, what is the?
So the current state statute of Act 20 requires districts to develop and adopt this policy by July 1st.
Okay,
And so what's happening is because this policy, Act 20, is so nuanced, they're debating about the assessment, the materials, the training, the funding, the state coaches that come or don't come. There's so many nuances to this statute. So the next layer of this is the training that we had to do for the screeners. And the screeners are the launch pad to the reading plans, and then also the progress monitoring to determine the promotion policy. So if there's changes in the assessment screeners, and there's changes in the reading plans, that'll affect the policy changes, and then whether or not they decide that students that are not demonstrating progress made towards their reading plans, if they go on or not, could potentially be debated as well. So we just have to adopt the policy, and I like how Ms. Levy suggested within state law, because there's the potential of state law changing in the next couple years, as this is a very new law.
for the next couple of months.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's my concern. I mean, we have to do what we have to do.
We
I just
do.
don't, I love you guys, but we don't need to go through this every couple of weeks, I hope.
No.
So,
We would prefer not to.
yeah, okay. Well, I have a question. So can a parent come to the school district and say, I'd like to hold my child back in the third grade before?
Anybody.
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay,
happens all the time.
okay. But the parent ultimately has the final say in this process, correct? Parent or guardian?
Well, at a certain grade level, yeah.
Well, yeah, third, fourth. 3 going to 4, right? That's what we're talking about.
I think a parent has the final say in promoting, not retaining, is how I interpret that.
Yeah, and I think we always, as educators, come to the table with a conversation, right? You want to look at things as a case-by-case basis. And honestly, that is the body of research, just to kind of throw that out there, around retention. It's not an effective intervention strategy in most cases. Because what happens is the student may be retained, and then in the beginning, it's like they're caught up, but the reasons why they were behind aren't really addressed, and they often fall behind again. And so that's why, and what it really does, longitudinal studies have shown, is it increases dropout rates. Because if you retain a student, when they're small, doesn't seem like a big deal. But on the latter end, you've now turned an 18-year-old into a 19-year-old or an 18-year-old into a 20-year-old senior, and then that leads to increased dropout rates. And so that's just kind of like a bigger thing to think about. But back to your question, yes, a parent always has the right to make requests, and then we come together and talk about what's best for individual children.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, Board Member Levy?
Thank you for saying that, because there's one other thing that I highlighted. So I don't know what page it is, but it says if retention is recommended by the school, the district will identify and communicate supports to mitigate potential negative impacts such as social stigma, loss of friendships, damaged self-esteem, and other mental health concerns. Do we have a process in place to address those needs that are outlined for our students?
Absolutely, that's our student services teams.
Thank you so much.
Board Member Hankins, is there anything any questions you have or would like to add?
No, it's just a question, and forgive my ignorance, naivete. I hear parent guardian, and those are legal terms. And I also know, just being on the board, there's a lot of grandparents are involved, and they maybe not be their legal guardians, but they're kind of the caretakers. So when we say legal, or parent and or guardian, and we all know in some families that's not. How does the school district decipher that?
Yep, so if a grandparent is the caretaker of a student in the district, they're listed in the system as a caretaker/guardian. So this covers them.
It's not a legal term.
No. Well,
I mean, they don't have to have been granted that by a court to be a legal guardian if they're a grandparent by birth.
there's guardianship papers, yes,
Yes.
and there's caretaker papers, yes. Some are court-ordered and some are, like, caretaker paperwork is not court-ordered. It's a parent signing over rights.
All right. I mean, I know you run into this, I'm sure, where there's an abyss out there of who's in control of this child.
Yeah.
Legally. Okay.
Yeah, we have that all in their student records.
I move approval of policy 345.4 as edited, and also for the retirement of policy 345.4, Rule 1.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Is there any more further discussion from anybody? Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carried. We move to the full board for the first reading.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is policies, food service policy 760, 760 Rule 1, 760 Rule 2, and 761. I will open that for discussion. Board Member Levy?
Thank you. So I guess my first concern is just structurally how these policies flow. In reviewing policy 670, food services programs, it doesn't really get into the programs. It spends a lot of time talking about non-discrimination. So I am going to toss this out there, and I would love feedback. I think the content of 760 Rule 1 really talks about the food service guidelines. So I would be open to shifting the content of policy 760 Rule 1 into policy 760. So what I'm recommending is we keep that first paragraph and then that standalone sentence, guidelines which govern, and then we go into the content of 760 Rule 1 because that really addresses food service programs. And then at the end, we go back to the content, the remaining content that's in policy 760 that talks about the non-discrimination. And I would recommend that we use a header for that of non-discrimination in the food service program. Does anyone need me to repeat any of that?
I do. So you're saying
Absolutely.
Sorry, take away 760 Rule 1.
No. So we're going to keep 760 as our framework, but we'll use this first paragraph and the standalone. So everything above what is recommended to be deleted, we keep that there. And then we jump down to the content that's currently in policy 760 Rule 1, because that really speaks to the food service program. It's listed as guidelines, but that describes the program. And then we conclude policy 760 with the remaining information that's really focused on non-discrimination. And I'm recommending that as a header for that, we use non-discrimination in food service program. Does anyone object to that?
Before I don't think I object, but are you going to including the additions to the?
Yep, and
Okay.
that would actually streamline it because this information is added here, and then it's also added again here. It's in the policy and the rule. And I'm sure there's a reason for that, but if we combine it, then we streamline it. You just need to have it in one place.
Okay.
So if everyone is okay with that, if we're looking at what is currently 760 Rule 1, it just jumps right in it. And for us lay folks that don't understand the nuance of your work, that can be a little confusing. So it starts with responsibilities of the school food authority. I have no idea what the school food authority is. So maybe if we could have some language and it doesn't have to be lengthy, because that's different from the food service management company, all right? But I have no idea what that is. So if someone could explain that, and maybe we can include that in the language, that would be helpful.
So the food service authority right now is Bob Cheney.
Turn your mic on. Your mic.
Right now, the food service authority is under Bob Chady. The DPI has recommended that it be under me because I'm managing the food service management company.
So I guess my question is, and I appreciate that that's a DPI recommendation, but if you're talking about the responsibilities of the school food, and I think I just answered my question. So the school food authority is currently, remind me of Mr. Chady's title, Executive Director of Business Operations?
Business Services.
Business Services, thank you, or designee, so you're not caught up on that. And then the food service management company is Chartwell's. Is that accurate? But we wouldn't put them in case that changes. And then it goes to the building principal. All right, I think I got the org chart now. Dr. Garrison, are there any concerns with shifting the role of the school food authority from Mr. Chady's office?
So since DPI made that recommendation, and I don't see that being a disagreeable space for the administration, I'm fine with that.
Okay. Is anyone opposed to just a sentence? And Dawn, could you give me your title?
School Director of Food and Nutrition.
Okay. So the responsibilities of the Director of Food and Nutrition?
Well,
Okay.
it's the school food authority is, I'll be honest with you, that's DPI, well, that's like DPI language.
Yeah,
So
it
we would be
is.
changing it if we do that.
Okay.
So I don't want.
Then we don't want to do that.
we
So
don't.
the responsibilities of the school food authority, and then if we have a sentence that says the school food authority for the school district of Beloit is the director of food and nutrition. Did I get that right?
That'd be perfect, yeah. Do
Okay.
that. We do that.
And then I think the rest of it flows, and then I'm good. And then the green part at the bottom, we only have to add once because we're combining it.
So this,
I'm fine with the switch. Mrs. Smith, did you have any?
no, I'm fine with it too.
Ms. Shope, did you need me to repeat anything?
Oh, the board has,
Well,
sorry.
Board Member Hankins, do you have any questions or suggestions?
No, I'm good with this. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Garrison, do you have some more?
No.
Okay. Mrs. Shope, you're good with the changes?
I just need clarification on where we landed with the responsibilities of the school food authority. Is that where we stayed, or did we change it?
No, we're going to keep it, but then we're going to specify that the school food authority for the school district of Beloit is the director of food and nutrition or designee, just to give
Okay.
us some
Okay, and-
latitude there.
And then, could I ask a question of Mrs. Smith about the policy? Not
Yes.
content, but just layout?
Sure.
So, in looking at the policy, my question is number 2 and everything underneath it the responsibilities of the school food authority?
Let's see, coordinate with the confirm. Yeah, I think so. And then the responsibilities of the food service management company would be underneath that. Yes, so that should be.
So I'm just wondering if, I know this is picky, but instead of number 2 being a 2, if it should be like an A, and then the A through H should be underneath. So it falls underneath, like 3 has the A and everything underneath it to better flow. Because I felt like when I looked at it just now, it looked like, well, what are those responsibilities? And then I thought, well, then who's doing number 2? So anybody object to me making those changes to the policy?
No, so number 1 would have A through I, and then 3 would become 2, and so on.
Yes.
If that's correct, unless 2 should be a higher number and the other things fall underneath that. That's what I was just trying to figure out. And I can talk to her later about it as long as the committee is okay with us making those changes so it flows.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm fine with that.
Right, because all the duties of 2 are under her jurisdiction, her responsibility. So, yeah, I would think that would be.
And we'll figure out the little, how to lay it out
Okay. Okay.
Needed the okay.
So I move approval of policy 760, food service programs, and the retirement of policy 760, rule 1, food service program guidelines.
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm not sure, I'm looking at 761, wellness PDF. Do we
We
have a
haven't-
standing wellness PDF, or a committee?
Yes.
And they meet as scheduled, what is spelled out in there?
Quarterly.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carried. We'll move this to the full board for first reading. Michelle, got that right? Thank you. Okay, next item is 760 Rule 2, up for revision. Open that for discussion also. Actually, let me, before we do, well, I'll just add this, I'll just clarify this. So the only addition is the same the same
The non-discrimination. You
non-discrimination.
needed the whole policy.
Yep, gotcha.
Yep.
Board Member Levy.
Thank you. So just a couple things. One, the start under water consumption feels like a bullet point instead of a full sentence. It just says encourage increased consumption of water throughout the day. Is this the district, just if we could round that out? And then my concern with that is under water bottle policy, each site shall determine when students may bring bottles for use during school and establish a policy of whether or not bottles may be refilled during school time. So that to me feels like the opposite of encouraging increased consumption of water throughout the day, because what we're saying is that someone in the district is going to communicate when they can bring water bottles and if they can be refilled. And so I'm just wondering, is there something I'm missing for that language, or can we just sum that up with students will appropriately use water bottles? Because that's the only thing I can think of where someone would put a restriction on their use, or is that so common that we don't need to include that into the policy?
Can I respond to that?
Sure.
So I think it's an interesting space here, and when I reviewed it, I wanted to hear a little bit more from, Mr. Smith around it, because I did not ask her specifically about this part. Yes, I can tell you sometimes students like to go get water a lot during class time, and so that becomes that can become a thing, and so we have to kind of restrict certain things, but I don't think it needs to be spelled out like this in the policy, and so maybe we can just we encourage, like you just mentioned, we encourage students to use water bottles at the appropriate time designated by the classroom teacher or something like that? Or
Are you comfortable with, under the header of water bottle policy, students will follow classroom rules with respect to water bottle usage?
I'm fine with that.
And then we can just omit that first sentence, which I already shared my feelings on. And then my other concern is that first bullet point, water bottles must be clear and have secure caps. That is not a thing in the district, and when policy doesn't match practice, we need to figure out which one needs to change. I don't think any administrator, any classroom teacher wants to spend time battling over a water bottle, so I think we should just remove that.
So I can tell you the reason why that's there is because, there has been situations where something is not water in the bottle. And I'm not going to, shade that conversation with the board. So that's probably why that is there. However, we're not following that part of the policy. I'm not going to shade that part either, because I've seen water bottles like yours, or water bottles like mine, which is all silver. So I understand that too.
So does anyone object to removing that first bullet point?
That the water bottles must be clear.
Yep.
Okay.
And then, well, let me just back up. Ms. Shope, did you need me to repeat the first sentence that's going to replace what's there? Please. Okay. Let's see if I can remember what I said. Students will follow classroom rules with respect to use of water bottles. So that'll replace the first sentence that's there. And just formatting on that next page, food must also, if we could use bullet points to be consistent with the layout of the rest of the policy instead of numbering that. And that's all I got. Oh, that first sentence. Is everyone okay with under water consumption? The district encourages increased consumption of water, consumption of water throughout the day.
Board Member Hankins?
Yeah, just a question. Does it say in there, Mrs. Levy, that only water can be in these containers? Is it spelled out?
It is not explicitly no, but if you take it in the context of the rest of the policy, any food or beverage outside of lunch is supposed to follow these rules. So I guess technically it wouldn't need to be water if they are following the other guidelines that are in this policy, but I think we should leave that alone because no administrator, no classroom teacher has the time or probably even the interest of policing that. For example, I'll use Madison because she won't mind. She has a circle. So it's not clear. It does have a secure cap, but it has the cartridge where you can do flavored water. So I think we should just stay out of that. Just my 2 cents.
And I agree with you, but I think it should be stated that there are things that should not be in that water bottle. And why should we call it a water? It's a liquid container then. I know we're getting into a gray area and it gets deeper and deeper, but I know there's certain things we don't, they'll say, well, it didn't say I couldn't have this in there.
I hear your point. I would stick to water bottle because of that first sentence under water consumption, is that's what we're encouraging.
Well, the student code of conduct also says what they, it can't be under the influence, it can't be, so it's covered there too. Yeah.
I have a suggestion on close to what you said, Board Member Levy, but how about if we say the school district of Beloit encourages increased consumption of water throughout the day? I think we give I know it's potatoes, but, or tomatoes, but anyway. Okay. I'd like to suggest that. Mrs. Shope, did you get that? Okay. I'm trying to talk it in the mic for you. Thank you. Okay.
I move approval of policy 760, Rule 2, student nutrition guidelines to the full board for a first reading.
A second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Approved to move to the full board for the first reading. And the next policy is policy 761, wellness. I will open that for discussion.
I believe my question was answered. Thank you.
Okay. Board Member Levy, anything? Okay. So, Mrs. Smith, we're just adding the all foods sold outside top paragraph and then the
And that non-discrimination.
non-discrimination clause. Okay.
This is a relatively new policy too,
Yeah.
so that does
Right.
help.
Actually, I apologize. I do have one question. You jogged my memory. What about food fundraisers?
So that
Like
was it. That was-
Candy bars and things like that that are sold during the school day that may not comply. Is there an exemption for fundraisers?
two per event. So if it's, and so we did have to update that with the high school, and Emily did a great job. She has the exempt form, and so there are two that can happen for each event, I guess. So club, yeah, or organization. So the day that we were audited, they were trying to sell candy bars to the DPI. So that was a little bit, but it does happen, but they've been pretty good. So, but she updated that policy and that was already sent to DPI.
Thank you.
Board Member Hankins?
Thank you, Ms. Levy. You jogged my memory. Food trucks, and not our district-owned ones, but during the football season, I've seen a food truck parked in the parking lot. Whose jurisdiction does that fall under? And does the district see any proceeds from that, or,
Not that I'm aware of.
so
you
who
said-
gives them permission?
So you say you saw a food truck in our parking lot during a football game?
Yes, sir.
I would need to know what food truck that is.
It was a Mexican.
Yeah, it is happening for athletics.
So I would need to speak with Mr. Gratz around the approval around that process, but typically there is an approval for that.
Oh, I agree. I was just wondering who gave them
And there's a
permission.
license that they need to get a license, because if we're at the library, we have to pay for a license to be at the library. So if we have our food trucks there, so yeah, there is a license that they need.
It's just like when we have our opening day opportunities, sometimes,
I'm not talking about the district's food service. This is in direct competition with the cafeteria, or the vending coming out of, the PTA or PTOs, who's ever doing that. And I'm just wondering whose guidance they're falling under as far as nutrition and selling to the public on school grounds.
They're probably just showing up.
that guidance will fall under our guidelines that we currently have for food services. So typically during football games or basketball games, it's a little different because it's after the food service
It's
workday.
exempt. Booster clubs are exempt.
Correct. So because it's after the food services, I hate to say workday, but food services time frame. So then it becomes more of an exempt space for like what type of foods we want to serve during that time frame.
Well, I think you're missing my point. I understand the vending service going on inside Jacobson Field, but I'm talking about in our parking lot and I'm all for food trucks, I love them. But whose jurisdiction do they fall under?
That'll be our jurisdiction because we're allowing them to be on our property.
But you just said you didn't know that.
No, I didn't say that. I didn't know. I said that had to be approved through us.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. And do they charge rental, or they just park and go?
Typically, there's a kickback on, I'd say kickback. Typically, there's some form of compensation for when they are on our property and selling. And it's typically based off of like how much they're selling. So let's say they sold, I don't want to give you any speculation, but 100 hamburgers and sold for $2. We get back 25 cents on a hamburger, something like that.
I just know that recently that these vending operations were under the microscope, and this kind of fell into that purview. Thank you.
Okay, I think we have someone in the room that can help us out here. Mrs. Evans, do you have some knowledge of this and might have some knowledge of this? And thank you.
So regarding the food trucks, there were two during football season. Have no idea. One was a Hispanic one. The other one was an African American one. Both of them were not from Beloit. They were from Janesville. The African American one, I went and asked the lady because to me that was competition with the Booster Club, and we raised money for scholarships for the school. So I was kind of upset. I did send an email to Dan, but I went and asked her, and she said some lady, she didn't even know the lady's name, contacted her and asked her, would she be willing to do the football game, and she parked along that swimming area right there. I asked her, was she gonna pay a fee? Was there some kind of fees paid? And she said no. So of course, the booster, we were kind of upset because we know where our money go to, and people were allowed to leave out of the football games to buy concessions, which usually once you come in the games, you cannot leave. So I know it happened twice during football season.
Thank you. That is exactly my point.
Thank you for the information. We appreciate that. We'll leave that in your capable hands, Dr. Garrison. Okay. Any other discussion? Could I get a motion?
I move approval of policy 761 wellness as edited to the full board for a first reading.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carried. Move to the full board for first reading.
Point of order or clarification. Were there
Yes.
any additional changes made or just what was already in the,
Just what was proposed by the
thank you.
administration.
Yeah,
Yep,
what was-
thank you.
Sorry about that. Okay. Okay, I could use a motion to move these to the next policy committee meeting.
I move to table items 2A and 2B to our April policy meeting.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Hearing? Oh, okay. Board Member Levy?
So here's my concern. I'm concerned that Mr. Gratz is not here. I'm concerned that this is the second month we're having this conversation, and I suspect, but I would love to be wrong, that not every person in leadership in a booster club in the district, of which we have several, has been given this policy for their input, because that's critical. It does not make sense to pass a policy that booster clubs need to be governed by, and they had zero input in the creation of the policy. For example, it was shared with me that when the policy starts, it talks about, hold on, let me grab it. Be compliant with the Wisconsin Booster Club guidelines. Now, it was shared with me that there are currently no Booster Club guidelines established by the state of Wisconsin, and that had been verified by WIAA. So Mr. Gratz should be here to explain those discrepancies, and I'm very disappointed that we're prepared to have this conversation and he's not here for month 2.
Thank you, Board Member Levy. Any other discussion?
No, I just very much concur with Mrs. Levy. I'm disappointed in myself.
Yes. I concur. This is not good. So, anyway, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carried. We'll table these till the April 2nd Policy Committee meeting.
can I make one notation? I heard what you said, Mrs. Levy, but I did want you to know that I was given a cross-reference to add that is about Wisconsin Booster Club guidelines and requirements from Mr. Gratz from after the last meeting. And I didn't know if you saw that that had been added. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't, I don't know. But that was added to the policy that was on the agenda for tonight. So that attachment had that addition to it. Just wanted you to know that.
Is it a live link so we can view that document?
It is. If you
Thank
have
you.
trouble getting there, let me know, but he sent it to me, I went to the link and I recopied it and then put it in as a link on the cross-reference.
And I don't want to belabor the point, but what is the Parent Booster USA? And is that, I'm not saying that they're not. I am ignorant in this area, but this isn't DPI, this isn't WIAA. Like, what reason do we have to follow Parent Booster USA guidelines? I don't know who they are.
Are we kind of still in the discussion, or
We are.
I just want to make sure I don't, So, Mr. Grass wasn't able to be here. I do know why he was not able to be here. There was a SLC meeting Southern Lakes Conference. What's it called? I want to call it like a ranking conversation. And he was supposed to be back by now. Unfortunately, that meeting did go over, and that's why he's not here. However, to answer your second part of your question, I don't want to make any excuses for not being able to answer the first question that you asked, Mrs. Levy, when you asked have other boosters reviewed the policy? That was your first question. I have asked Mr. Grass that question, and he says yes to that space. Now, if he's not here to defend that space, I don't want to get into that space at all. So that's why I didn't answer, until after I got clarity.
No, I completely understand that, but we
Yeah.
have a booster club president right here. It's up to chair.
Yes.
I just have a few things to say. Dr. Garrison, that's incorrect because he didn't even inform me. I'm here because of, I heard about these meetings from someone else. Dan has not even talked to me about any of this. I've just been showing up on my own. So I've never seen the proposal from Dan or anything. And I was seeing Dan, I'm at every football game, basketball game, 2 and 3 games a week. He has not shared any of this with me. I came prepared to talk about the Booster Club and some of the things in the proposal. And I know this isn't the time, but are kind of ridiculous, and I did call the WIAA myself as recently as Monday. They said the schools set up their own guidelines for the Booster Club. They have nothing to do with WIAA. And I've been the Booster Club president at the high school for 10 years. We've never had a problem. We have our own 503C. We have our own raffling license. Everything, and I have all documents here. So I'm not sure why Dan isn't here, but I just want to say that he hasn't even talked to me about it. I just been showing up the last 2 months.
Thank you. I have a question. Did you, all the documents that you just said you filed, the 501c3 and et cetera, did you do that through Parent Booster USA? No?
Did I do it from Booster USA?
Through Parent Booster USA?
No.
That's the link where this?
No.
Okay. Okay.
We just did it on our own. David Wilson was our Booster Club president. When he left and resigned, I was voted in, so I've been the Booster Club president. And like I said, I have everything. We have our own bylaws, everything.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of tabling until the April 2nd meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. We'll move these back to April. Thank you. Okay, we're on to 3A, next meeting date. As previously said, the next meeting date is Wednesday, April 2nd, 2025 at 5:30 PM. Could I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned at 6:28 PM. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.